Thank you, and hey friends, welcome to my talk today. I have something very exciting for you, at least I think that. I might be biased. Okay, I will argue why developer infrastructure is important and how we can do it better. A lot of you work on decentralized applications, so we will look at this through this lens. Let's start with a bit of history, right? Some might have heard the story. Let's do a quick check. Who here knows the context of this picture? Show of hands. Yeah, I see one. Okay, that's great. That's great. It would be awkward to tell a story that everyone knows. But this is source code. Typically, you don't see source code in books. So what's the story behind that? This is the story of PGP. PGP, pretty good privacy. Email encryption was first developed in 1991. It was released. In 1993, Phil Zimmerman was then charged because of munition export. He would have needed to register as an arms dealer because strong cryptography by the US was considered ammunition, basically. And then in 1995, as part of his legal defense, he published the entire source code in books. Because at the same time, there were many other lawsuits going on that were kind of trying to create this narrative of, if I can print it in a book, and a book is free speech protected by the First Amendment, then code should be protected as well. In 1996, there was a very crucial ruling in the end. And the ruling argued that there is no meaningful difference between computer language and German or French. It communicates to those who can read it. And that is a very, very crucial, very important point in the history of cryptography, and makes for a lot of the basis of everything that we're doing here today. So say thank you to the stuff that happened 30 years ago. Yeah, if code is speech, we need to keep this in mind for the rest of the presentation. Everything that we do here is in some way related to cryptography and is building on top of that. If that hadn't happened, all of this would be proprietary knowledge and probably be siloed away in like some American company. In the 90s, there was this community, like a mailing list of people that really cared about cryptography and about the political implications of that. And a lot of the influential people at the time were like communicating there, discussing ideas, some of them more abstract, some of them more concrete, some of them were codified. The general vibe was like individual autonomy, freedom from centralized authority. So a lot of what we are talking about today has been discussed before in some form. Who are the cypherpunks? Just again for the context, so we start off from the same knowledge. A cypherpunk in that context is someone that advocates for the widespread use of cryptography for effecting social and political change. I think when I put like democracy in the title, that's a bit touchy. Politics is always interesting, but I think those two topics cannot really be separated. So where are those people today? Potentially here. You care about cryptography, you care about social and political change. You might be the continuation of this movement, whether or not you saw yourselves as that or not. Why am I telling you all of this? I think there is a strong overlap in the value set here. And I want to argue that if we can agree on like a value set, on this cypherpunk value set, then it will be really interesting for what that means for us. In 2023, there was this essay by Vitalik, Make Ethereum Cypherpunk Again. It speaks about a couple of those values, global participation, decentralization, censorship resistance. You can read yourself. But the essay ends with the idea that it's especially the non-financial projects that are currently underfunded and what we can do about it. Like Gitcoin is one of those things. Drips network is another one of like how we can fund those and how can we bring some of the financial success of other Web3 projects to build like a variety of decentralized tooling. Web3 Privacy Now is a cool project. You should check them out. And they created this nice slide that also mentions radical here. But yeah, they talk about this decentralization, permissionlessness, censorship resistance as values that we can bring to Ethereum and generally to the Web3 space. Who am I? I'm Johannes Kühlewindt, and you can find me online. I'm working on Radical for a while now, and all the opinions in this talk, especially when it comes to politics, are my own. I'm not fully representing the project here, but I'm presenting the project. In Radical, we have a diverse set of like people working on there, so not everyone might agree with me. This is why I'm saying this here. Why should we care about developer infrastructure? First of all, so we don't need to print it in books and ship it overseas, so we can export it from the US. I think that's funny. I think that if we have developer infrastructure that is free and decentralized and that we can all participate in, it allows us to build the future that we want and affect the societal change. So one of the core values of the cypherpunks was cypherpunks write code. So all of the change is affected by code. And all of you here in the room either work on or with code. It's a very code-centric audience, I would say. So if you work on the next anarcho crypto finance application, where do you put your code? There. GitHub. Most likely. Some of you might not, but yeah, that's generally the place where everyone puts their code right now. And is that a problem? Like I personally think it's a centralized platform and we shouldn't trust it so much, but why really? Is this really a problem? And I think before like half a year ago, the conversation I was having with people and telling them like, you shouldn't trust like a single like American big for-profit company with the basis for all of your work. They changed. They changed mainly because of geopolitical tensions. Suddenly you see a president of a nation directly influencing like companies and changing foreign policy and everything. So if we look at this world map here, we are currently there in this like small country, Germany, right? And GitHub is legally there in the US. So what does it mean? When I want to share some code with you here in the room, and I put it on GitHub, then I don't only need to follow like the German legal system, I also need to follow the US legal system. That shouldn't really be a problem because code and speech and everything, so we should be fine. But there's another problem. And that is the question, are companies democratic? So I will try to be balanced here. Like not everything needs to be democratic. It's probably also fine for companies to be like, oh, top down, and we just build a cool product. You can use it or not. You have alternatives, open market, whatever. But I think I'm trying to crystallize one of the core issues here of Web 2, which is if you have centralized control and you by now have companies that are bigger than the nations that don't have any democratic process, any way to participate in decision making, then I think that opens the door for a lot of issues. So summarizing what I just said, let's say country B is Germany, where we are. Country A is the US, where GitHub is. And then we have this even smaller circle, which is terms and conditions or platform or like whatever it is. And I can really only openly say and build and write code that fits into this small intersection. Maybe the intersection is fine today, but maybe it's shrinking tomorrow. So if code is speech, and then in code collaboration is public discourse. And when a company controls the public discourse, I think that's a problem. There is no separation of power. I might not be able to go to a court and appeal a decision because their terms and service allow them to do something. So in a way, it all comes down to I don't get to participate in the decision-making inside of this platform. And here, this is where I really want to drive this point home. Like, please memorize that. That's the core. That's the core of the presentation, really. The question is like, what's the alternative? And the first question we should ask ourselves is open source maybe the answer? Is open source democratic? And everyone that has participated in open source knows that not necessarily. You might have like one core maintainer, a dictator, they dictate everything. But I think it is a better foundation. It opens public discussions. It creates more transparency. And maybe democratic is not really the right term for what we want to have. Maybe better terms are user agency, which we get from open source. Maybe it's participatory infrastructure. Like I can participate in public discussions. I can steer directions. I can raise my concerns. And maybe open source can help us build systems that really reflect the diversity of the people that participate in them. So how do we do it? How do we go from GitHub to whatever comes next? Git itself is decentralized. It does a lot with cryptography, mainly hashing, we'll see that, and I will do a quick demo. And yeah, the properties it has are actually really cool, like really decentralized. And then in 2008, GitHub comes along and offers a couple of things that are supposed to improve the user experience, right? And that part is centralized. What we get from GitHub is, for example, canonical names. I know which repository is which by the URL where I find it from. That's not decentralized, right? But that's, we have user identities that are tied to emails. We have a platform that takes care of moderation, which is really nice because we don't have so much spam. Again, the user experience is great. It just works. Most of the time it gets out of the way. I'm not going to argue against that. We get two more things like continuous integration, artifact hosting, just a couple of features that Git doesn't have itself. But let's think back to our cryptographic primitives. How can we do from if what we have is encrypting, signing, hashing, and potentially proving? I will leave that out for now because I'm not so versed in that. But let's say we have the first three primitives. How can we take those three primitives and build a decentralized platform that can do basically everything that GitHub can do? This is what we're trying to do with Radical. So the way that Radical works is it says every one of you, every developer, is becoming a node, and we have a gossip protocol. So we talk fully peer-to-peer between different nodes. We basically say, okay, I'm working on a feature. I commit a branch, and then I hit enter, and my node gossips to the network. Hey, there's something new in this Git repository, and everyone who is interested then can go and just do a Git fetch essentially under the hood from my node. How do we solve the identity problem? You obviously want to have something that is a canonical identifier for the repository. If you have done anything in the space, you know, like content addressing is cool, but it's not so ideal if you want to have something like a Git repository where you have tons of files and that is constantly evolving. So the way that we do it is we basically create an identity document. We create a hash of that contains like my DID key and the name of the project, description, whatever. I can hash that and suddenly I have a stable identifier, and then I can evolve that over time. But the initial identity document, even if I change it, that will be like revisions from there on. Quick excursion into Git. I don't want to assume too much. I assume most of you know how to do a commit. But yeah, what is a commit really? A commit is a file. It has references to other hashes. In that way, that's like, I don't know, is this a blockchain? Probably not a good term to use for Git. It's not the same audience necessarily, but what you see here is really like the contents of a commit file. You have a hash of the current file tree. You have a hash of the parent. That's the blockchain part. And then you have something like a payload, right? There I can write in who's the author, I can write in like what are the changes about. And then if I look into what the tree is actually, the tree is again just a file that has a bunch of hashes of every one of my files. So I get like a content addressing for all of my files out of the box for free, which I think is great. So if this is my first commit here on the left, and every other commit then points to the previous commit, I can create this like chain of like saying this is the canonical version of my repository. All of the updates are signed by me. And this is where I use the cryptographic primitive of signing. So anyone can look and verify the data that all of the changes are done by someone that like is a maintainer of the project. I can still evolve that and later merge other Git commits inside, as long as the maintainer like basically does the signature on that. So what is radical? This. First of all, what you can see here is it's a Git remote. So instead of pushing to origin, you would push to red. Red has its own protocol, own handler. I will explain a bit more on that later potentially. But Git is also, Radical is also social artifacts. So GitHub is much more than Git, as I said initially. And that means we need issues, we need patches, and more things like that. So here I use the red patch command, and I see everything that all of the open patches, potentially more. That still doesn't look like GitHub, right? And I recognize, I said it multiple times, GitHub has great UX. So how can we bridge that gap? And this is where we've done a lot of investing into actually making this nice and pretty for you, so you can use it. How do we close the user experience gap? We want to offer a familiar experience, and this is what we've built. This is a native desktop application built in Tori. It interacts with your local node, and it looks very familiar if you've used GitHub before. You know, there I'm on a repository, I see my inbox, I get notifications, and all of that is fully decentralized. Here we see, for example, a patch involving some changes. How am I doing the time? I think I can do a 2-minute demo. 3 minute maybe? Yeah? Good. Let's see if that works out. Here you go. Okay, so I have installed like all of the tooling already. But you could find it on the Radical page. So let's say you've installed the tooling. What you would do is Web3 Summit demo. I will create a small Rust binary and show you how to do things. So let's say Web3 Summit. So what we have here is now a README file. I will also go in real quick and modify the main RS to say hello Web3 Summit. This is now my work tree. I will add this best commit message. And this is just now a local Git repository. I cannot share this with any one of you because like the way that I could share this with you is now go to GitHub, right? And then I could share a GitHub URL with you. But what I actually want to do, obviously, is do a red init here. And I give this project a name. I give it a description, keep it empty. I say I'm going to make this public. I could also have private repositories here. And now you saw a couple of things happening. So basically what happened now is I shared this project with a peer-to-peer network. So if I click on this link now, moment of truth. Yes, there you go. It's already online. This is basically, you can imagine it as a bridge. This is a thing that has a radical node, but also exposes this as like HTTP. So you could, if I give you the identifier now, which I can get like this. This is my identity for, this is the radical identifier for that repository. That's how easy it is basically to add a new repository to the network. And if I refresh this page for a second, I can see here basically live seeing how it goes through the network. It's already seeded by like 8 people. It's probably gonna go around like 20 people that are just very permissive and seeding everything that comes on the network. How do I interact with that? I can go here. This is the desktop client I just talked about. If I now go to the Web3 Summit demo that I just now created, I see the README that we created. So we can also see, there's no open issues, but let's say the README is too short. And let's try this. We attach an image as well, and README. And we preview this real quick. Oh yeah, we can even attach images and everything. We're gonna save that. So now I have one open issue here. If I want to create a patch to fix that, I click here on new patch. It basically tells me how to create a new patch. I first obviously need to make changes. So if I go into the README and say added a line and close this again, yeah, let's call it README, create a README branch. Live demos, huh? Bit stressful. And then I'm pasting this command. What this does is it creates a patch. I can now give it a description. Gonna try the markdown as well. Now it's, yeah, my terminal is a bit small. Usually this has really nice spinners. Can I get this? Yeah, okay. It's basically up to date as again. So if I, no, that's not the one. If I go here onto patches, I should already see also on the web version, okay, there's a patch open. If I go now here onto patches, I see, oh, I opened the patch. This is the changes. So I basically get essentially all of the features that I would expect. But let's finish the presentation. We can, if anyone is interested in it, we can do a bit of a deep dive, hackathon, whatever, later on. But yeah, Radical XYZ. What does it offer? First of all, it's decentralized. Second of all, you have content addressable identifiers for your repositories. Your identity. I didn't need to create like an identity because I had one already. But creating the identity is just creating a key pair. We get a couple of things that are really nice, and I'm not going to read the entire slide, but one thing I want to go into, because I gave it a green checkmark here, is continuous integration. I cannot demo this right now because I'm out of time, but essentially the way that continuous integration works in a peer-to-peer system is if all of those nodes are interested in what my repository does, then it doesn't even matter who's running the CI for me. It could be a computer that is under my desk, even behind NAT and everything, and it just publishes updates as social artifacts of like, okay, this CI ran, here you go, it's green or red. It can even have elevated permissions and all of this because it's a trusted machine in my basement, or someone else can run it for me. All of that works. But closing, I wanna open up this topic a bit more, and not only talk about developer infrastructure. I want you all to ask yourself the question, what are the foundations that we, everyone here in the room, build on? We don't need to print code in books, but where is our code? Let's start with that. Where do we build our audience, our community? Is it maybe on X? Where is the critical internal documentation? What would happen if something that we did, something that our company did, our organization did, would not fit into what the platform owners want, or what a president of a country where the platform is residing wants? Those are the thoughts I want to leave you with. Difficult question. But yeah, get involved. It's open source. you can try it out on Radical XYZ. It has all of the instructions. We have really good guides. Gone through a lot of iterations there. I would love to discuss this topic. I'm very passionate about it. Come grab me after. You can find us in Zulip. It's basically Discord, but different. The URL is there. You can follow me on Blue Sky or Radical XYZ on Blue Sky. This is where we are. Thank you.